With economic conditions worsening, currency searches for a place to flow in order to keep it alive, akin to a human heart pumping the blood to keep someone alive. In this case, our nations have long since stopped beating, and the putrid and rotting stench becomes obvious from anywhere you are. Take a good hard look at reality. Just plug your nose. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we will talk about why 1 in 6 young men are either jobless or in jail. Let's begin with that right away out of the CBO's own report. In 2014, there were 38 million men in the United States between the ages of 18 and 34. About 5 million were jobless and 1 million were incarcerated. Think about that for a second. 1 in 6 young men are either in one of the worst situations, being incarcerated in this case, or jobless. And oftentimes, the joblessness leads to incarceration. Not directly, of course, but this report does make those sort of connections. Those numbers and some related longer-term trends have significant economic and budgetary implications. Young men who are jobless or incarcerated can be expected to have a lower lifetime earnings and less stable family lives on average. And then it goes on. It basically tries to make some specifics here about if you are this type of person, then you have this percentage, and if you're that, then you're that percentage. And of course, these are statistics. They don't lie, but the statistics, of course, don't really give us the bigger picture in this case. But it's just interesting to look at when you realize that's a very serious number, 1 in 6, where you think about the possibilities for the future. How do we ever grow out of this mess when you have 1 in 6 individuals who are in a bad situation? Young men, of course. The numbers that the government throws around are not accurate. This is out of my book. Essentially, what I'm talking about here are the unemployment numbers. And economist John Williams explained that these criteria used by these governments included prior to 1994, but now they literally, quote, defined them out of existence. And that's in order to decrease the unemployment rate. And that is exactly why. They're not hiding that fact. You use, instead of the U3 unemployment rate, which is fraudulently around 5%, now think about it just using the U6 number, which is several percentage points higher than the U3 unemployment rate. And that gives you a more accurate, not accurate of course, but a more accurate view of the actual statistics. So this 1 in 6 young men, what's the real amount? That's what I'd like to know. But of course, we're never going to know. But what's important is that we look at the bigger picture. A lot of people are either in jail or incarcerated, and the government numbers are skewed. That's what you need to take from this. Let's look at this here. As we see a few nations, Venezuela being the most obvious example, they're in trouble. Many nations are in trouble. And in fact, there are very few that will be able to do much evasion from the dominoes falling. This happens to be from Bloomberg, talking about Venezuela. Start with the riddle of why the country with the world's largest crude oil reserves has suffered constant power outages. And they said that they're using hydropower instead of their oil to generate electricity. Now, there are different reasons why a nation would want to do this, but either way, the situation that they're in isn't good because they're having these constant power outages, and the poor people who live there are suffering. Now, exactly what has happened? What is the solution to the energy crisis? Well, exactly that people working in the government sector will be working only 2 days a week. And that's the way that they're trying to handle this. It's ridiculous. And right here, a 30% hike on the national minimum wage. That hasn't done anything at all. And essentially what they've gone into is a region where their IMF is predicting 720% inflation. And this is the result. Consumers queuing for hours can't find 8 out of 10, 80% of staple goods at grocery stores. Not iPhones and iPods. We're talking about 8 out of 10 staple goods. Venezuela is literally running out of banknotes. That's the level of inflation. Get ready for the wheelbarrows. Get ready for the Zimbabwe level inflation because it's coming. Venezuela is crumbling down, and personally, I'm not seeing any international body really make any strong efforts to intervene here, at least on the surface level. The IMF hasn't come out and said, look, you need our help, take this loan. The US hasn't come out and said, look, we're going to take over a few of your companies and we'll take care of you, don't worry, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I really haven't seen that in the news, but we're going to keep an eye on that because I believe that when they're in their most vulnerable position, that's when the takeover will occur. Chaos in Brazil as Dilma impeachment vote annulled. Wait a second, and her face says it all. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a judge, and I didn't go to law school. But to me, this right here says that they were getting ready to impeach the person in power, Dilma Rousseff, and instead they said, no, we're going to scrap that idea. I mean, what kind of pieces of garbage do they think we are? And of course, we being the individual citizen, but of course, I'm representing those in Brazil. Trying to say, if the people want their leader, so-called leader, out, all you need to do is vote that person out. If you don't have that opportunity, that's called a dictatorship. There are many who will disagree with me, and I'll say it again. If you vote something and they turn around and say, no, go screw yourself, that is called a dictatorship. That is the EU. That is essentially every single nation, because people keep voting, or people vote in a different direction, let's say, then what comes to play? All right, let's look at this here. U.S. role in Afghanistan turns into combat again. Does this surprise anybody? I mean, does it really surprise anybody that the U.S. said that they would pull out of either Iraq or Afghanistan? They're not going to ever be able to, at least for the foreseeable future. They have so much invested there, and none of it is beneficial to the people of those nations. In fact, it's gotten a lot worse for them. That's all for this video. If you found it informative, please give me a thumbs up. Last but not least, if you found this video informative, I know you will find my book, The Money GPS, even more informative. If you head over to Amazon, you can actually look through this book. Just go over there. They have a look inside feature when you click on it, and it allows you to flip through the individual pages of the book to see if you like it. Take care.